I've played a lot of mobile games, and out of every single mobile game I've ever played, a specific genre has stuck out to me, and that is tower defense. If you didn't know, tower defense is a subgenre of the strategy genre, and it is, quote, a game where the goal is to defend a player's territory or possessions by obstructing the enemy attackers or stopping enemies from reaching a certain point. Basically, think about it like you have something, you protect it with something. That's basically a simple way of putting it. Now, out of every tower defense I've ever played, 2 of them have stood out to me. 2 tower defense games that, in my opinion, have gone above and beyond to push the boundaries of the subgenre itself. 2 games that I found to be especially interesting, creative, and most importantly, entertaining. These 2 games are Battle Cats and Plants vs. Zombies. So today, we will be comparing these 2 games to answer the question, which is the better mobile game, Plants vs. Zombies or Battle Cats? Now, these games are very, very different, but sometimes can be very, very similar. Really, their biggest similarity is the fact that they are tower defense games, so they will have some overlapping, like you do have to protect your base, which is basically the biggest similarity in the 2 games, but don't let that fool you. These games are vastly different in many different categories. But this raises the question, which is the better game? Which game should I invest my precious time into? So I'll be comparing these 2 games using different categories. I will talk about a category, for example, graphics, and explain what I think is the superior option. I'll explain, oh, this is what Battle Cats graphics are, and oh, this is what Plants vs. Zombies graphics are. Keep in mind that not every single, like, music isn't as important as strategy, etc. Also, another thing I want you to keep in mind is I will be calling Plants vs. Zombies 2 PvZ 2, PvZ, Plants vs. Zombies, Plants vs. Zombies 2. I'll be calling all those names. Just know that it's Plants vs. Zombies 2, not Plants vs. Zombies, because I think Plants vs. Zombies 2 is a vastly superior game. Now, keep in mind that this is all my opinion. If you disagree, that's okay. If you disagree with me, my opinion isn't objectively right. There is no objectively right when it comes to mobile games. Feel free to just express your ideas in the comment section below. With all that said and done, let's get started. Strategy. Starting out with a big one. As tower defense is a subgenre of the strategy broader genre, strategy definitely plays a very big part in which one is the better game. Now, for overall strategy, to keep it general, I'll say that Plants vs. Zombies is a more strategy-based game, while Battle Cats is more free-flowing. Plants vs. Zombies heavily focus on strategically picking plants before a stage to plan ahead and to optimally prepare for the challenge that is to come. Some worlds may even require different plants, like hot potato and frozen peaks, Frozen Cave, Frosted Caves. Battle Cats, there's not really any units that you need. I mean, meat shields are very, very important, but it's not like you need them all the time. Certain units are much more needed in Plants vs. Zombies rather than Battle Cats, putting more of an emphasis on planning ahead. Plants vs. Zombies is a more strategic and fixed than Battle Cats. Like, Plants vs. Zombies on the tower defense spectrum is a little closer to chess, even though Plants vs. Zombies and chess are like miles away, but still. Plants vs. Zombies 2 also has 8 lanes, meaning that you have to pay attention to every single lane, because even one zombie gets past you, die. Now, granted, there's lawnmowers, but lawnmowers aren't going to help you much when they're not there anymore. Also, it puts on more of an emphasis on multitasking, as you have to pay attention to 8 different lanes. Battle Cats, on the other hand, is a little more free-flowing. While yes, you do have to be careful on the units you choose before a game, like I'm not saying you should just completely wing it, I would say it's much easier to adapt to a poor choice of lineup. Battle Cats also only has 1 lane to attack and defend, compared to Plants vs. Zombies 2's 8 lanes, which makes it much easier to multitask, as you only really have to worry about 1 lane. Actually, you only have to worry about 1 lane. Also, timing is a lot more important in Battle Cats. Like, yes, in Plants vs. Zombies 2, you do have to worry about timing, but in Battle Cats, it's very, very important. Strategies like Cyber Stack require very, very heavily on planning your meat shields and your cyber stack hits. The cat cannon, Sniper the Cat. It's very important to time your units right, as if you time them wrong, your units can end up dead or very, very inefficient. Like, this can happen in Plants vs. Zombies too. Like, you just don't want to put a stun plant right before zombies on it to eat it, but it is definitely much harder in Battle Cats. Now, something both of these games have in common is that they place a huge emphasis on resource management, choosing what cats or plants to deploy and what you should invest your precious sun or money in. It's just very important to make sure that you're optimally using your sun or to create the best and most efficient defense. So PvZ 2 puts more of an emphasis on proper planning and multitasking, while Battle Cats puts more of an emphasis on adaptability and timing. Now, to be honest, I cannot really pick which one is better. It really depends on what strategy I feel like playing more, and fundamentally, I think they're pretty equal. They're just different playstyles. Sometimes I like to have the strategy of PvZ 2, and sometimes I like to have the more adaptability of Battle Cats. So, we are starting on this list with a tie. Stage design and variety. Both Battle Cats and Plants vs. Zombies 2 have a wide variety of stages. Now, each stage is based on lanes. Now, of course, Battle Cats does only have one lane where PvZ 2 has 8, but still, it is focused on lanes. In Plants vs. Zombies 2, the layout is usually fixed, and the challenge comes from the type and placement of the zombies in each lane, as well as sometimes environmental obstacles, like the swimming ropes in Pirate Seas, or those little tiles in Frosted Peaks, Frosted Caves. I give up on pronouncing that. Each level often requires players to place their plant placement in advance, keeping an eye on which lanes are most vulnerable. Like, usually there'll be like a 10-20 second period where you have to set up your basic defense where you can put down your sun producers and so on and so forth. PvZ2 also has worlds, which if you didn't know, are basically just like a bunch of collection of stages that have their own theme. For example, Neon Mixtape Tour with its 80s themed, so that you'll have 80s themed zombies, 80s themed plants, etc, etc. When it comes to enemies, PvZ2 does not fall short in creating a bunch of different and unique enemies that require their own challenge and own counterplay. For example, I really like that laser guy. I don't know what he's called, but the guy that drives a laser. Nothing can get through except for lasers, so you have to plan ahead. Should I use a precious slot for a laser plant? Now, in Battle Cats, the stages in Battle Cats are more freeform. Instead of lanes, there's just a single horizontal battlefield where cats and enemies can move towards each other from the opposite ends. There's no grid system for unit placement. This is very important. Basically, in Plants vs. Zombies 2, you're given a grid and you place anyone on the grid. Battle Cats just spawns at your base and they walk out depending on their movement speed. The challenge in most Battle Cat stages is to time your units right so that they defeat the enemy quicker. Most enemies, they have like this really strong backliner sometimes. I'm just making up a strategy, but sometimes they have a really strong backliner. When to time your units, when to time your rushers to go and brush them down and do some crazy burst damage. Battle Cats also has worlds, but to be honest, worlds in Battle Cats aren't as unique. Like, yeah, you'll see different kinds of enemies like aliens and Into the Future, but it's a lot less unique than I would say than Plants vs. Zombies 2. And the fact that you have to repeat a world 3 times, I am not a fan of that. Now, which one is better? In my opinion, I think Plants vs. Zombies 2 takes the lead here. As I said before, Plants vs. Zombies 2 has worlds, which are themed. I'm gonna go back to the 80s theme stages. So, this will bring new zombies, obstacles, and even hazards, like, for example, the music in 80s. This is very, very unique. In Battle Cats, when you change worlds, there's a little bit of difference. You might see like star aliens instead of aliens, but it's not as huge and as fundamental and as just polarizing as in Plants vs. Zombies. Like, when you go to different worlds, it does seem like a completely different world. When you go from Empire past Cast of the Cosmos, yeah, you'll see some new enemies, but it'll still feel the same. Battle Cats, once you clear a world, you have to repeat it 2 more times! And you have to do treasures. Don't even get me started on treasures. Each world in Plants vs. Zombies 2 feels genuinely refreshing and interesting and something completely new. Dinosaurs and Jurassic Parks, graves and Dark Ages, minecarts and Wild West, the list goes on and on. PvZ 2 is just incredibly diverse and each world feels unique. Battle Cats worlds can end up feeling repetitive as they can just be the same levels, just with boosted stats. And most stages besides, like, unit unlock stages, are not that all unique, with the exception of the enemy cannon. Like, sometimes you'll see an enemy cannon, but it's not like you'll have certain stage hazards, like, I don't know, like a rock falling on the side that kills cats once in a while. Like, something like that, you know? So yeah, this is gonna be the first point distributed. 1 point for Plants vs. Zombies 2. Challenge. Challenge is a very important part of any game, and if any game wants to be taken seriously, it has to have at least some challenge in it. Now, I hate the idea that just because a game is harder, it's better. In fact, I would say that the best games on the market are those with variety and difficulty settings. For example, you have an easy, difficult, and hard, and maybe not even making those so clear-cut, maybe like when you progress the game, it gets harder and harder. Most games do have this, but some games definitely do it better than others. Now, this is going to be a shorter one for sure. In my opinion, Plants vs. Zombies 2 isn't all that challenging, and while I do admit that some levels are pretty hard, especially with port planning, for the most part, the game is relatively a breeze. Aside from Jurassic Marsh, Neon Mixtape Tour, Big Wave Beach, and Modern Day, most of the worlds are just an easy sit-through. On the other hand, Battle Cats can prove to be very, very challenging. Now, obviously, both PvZ 2 and Battle Cats have levels that are easier than others, but I think Battle Cats is definitely more challenging. I think Plants vs. Zombies 2 has a better gradual release in difficulty, but I think Battle Cats, some of the stages are definitely more interesting in the challenge they provide. Like, I still haven't beaten Blue Planet, and I'm sure for more of your early game players, beating Chapter 3 Moon Bun Bun is going to be very, very difficult. And it does feel more rewarding playing and beating Battle Cat stages than Plants vs. Zombies 2 stages. But I did say, just because a game is harder doesn't mean it's better. Is this true for Battle Cats? No, it isn't. Battle Cats Challenge makes the game a lot better. Battle Cats Challenge makes it feel rewarding to play, especially stages like Legend stages. Now, that's not to say Plants vs. Zombies 2 doesn't feel rewarding to play sometimes, but I always feel better being a hard stage in Battle Cats than being a Plants vs. Zombies 2 stage. So yeah, Battle Cats takes its first point here. Graphics. Graphics are a very underrated part of the game. Like, no matter how good and well designed a game is, if it looks like this, who's playing it? Now, once again, both Battle Cats and Plants vs. 2 graphics are very, very good. Battle Cats goes for an anime-esque, more Japanese vibe, using mega animations and evolutions to showcase their animating prowess, giving many cats and enemies unique and interesting animations. While Plants vs. Zombies 2 uses its huge budget to create epic themes in every world, they take in a more general way of animating, that's more appealing to the general viewer. Now stop! If you watched this far in the video, that probably means you're enjoying it, and if you're enjoying it, please hit that like and subscribe button. That's all I'm going to say. Getting back to the video. While Plants vs. Zombies 2 uses its huge budget to create epic themes in every world, they take in a more general way of animating, that's more appealing to the general viewer. And they use their budget to create these themes of Plants vs. Zombies, all which are very colorful and visually appealing. Both games are very visually appealing, and I believe a big part of why both games are so big is because of their visual appeal. Now this one's probably a bit more personal. If you're not into anime, you'll probably scoff at the animation in the game, as PvZ2 is more visually appealing to the general player, and PONOS, while not like a small company, obviously has a lot of resources at their disposal than you know. EA Sports. So you might expect Battle Cats to lose, right? Right? Nope, in my opinion, Battle Cat's animation is superior. Now, while Plants vs. Zombies may have, I don't know, more like color, so just look at some of the animations of Battle Cats and you'll see what I mean. There's just so much hard work and hopefully love being put into these animations that I can't help see them losing. Also, every time a cat evolves, so does their animation, adding color, depth, and sometimes changing the animation completely. It also changes kind of like the character, what's that thing called? The character, like, oh my goodness, the character design sometimes. Sorry, I'm a little tired right now. So while I like the Plants vs. Zombies 2 animations, especially with the cool themes, I really like how every world has its own theme in Plants vs. Zombies. And I also like how they give different zombies different skins to fit the theme. That's sick. But Battle Cats wins it here for me. Battle Cats just has amazing, outstanding animation. So here we go, another point to Battle Cats. Unit variety and customization. Once again, both Plants vs. Zombies and Battle Cats have a very diverse cast of both units. Plants and Zombies, and Battle Cats, cats, and enemies. Both units in this genre have vastly differing abilities, and PONOS and EA Sports were very creative in creating their own abilities for each unit. Battle Cats is unique for having abilities like slow, weaken, freeze, etc. They can stack. For example, some unit can have freeze and slow, freeze and weaken, etc. Many units have overlapping abilities, but PONOS edits stats like traits so that they can affect them and try to make them all unique. Battle Cats has traits, which is a genius way in my opinion to help keep the game varied. Certain enemies will have trait like red, so cats who have slow versus red enemies, this gives them like sort of a niche in the meta. Like, oh no, this one might have like long range versus traitless enemies, but he has very low health. Or this one has very low range and no abilities, but he has very high health, so he's like a tank. Some abilities in Battle Cats are shared by both cats and enemies, so while some cats have the weaken ability, there are enemies that have that ability too, so this is genius in my opinion. Like, weapons you can use are being used against you, so it's like a two-way street. This creates a vast level of depth, and it's something I really like about Battle Cats. PvZ2 is a little different. Well, yes, there are abilities, and I guess you can argue they're traits, but I'd say there's mostly abilities. There's no really set abilities for plants and zombies to have. Instead, each plant and zombie has their own special ability. Sometimes. Like, some of the zombies obviously don't. Like, I guess Buckethead has more HP than a regular zombie, but I wouldn't really call that an ability. Now, while some plants and zombies are similar to each other, for example, all the exploding instant plant zombies have some similarities, I'd say there's at least a little bit of uniqueness that they can have. In general, I'd say Plants vs. Zombies 2 are a lot more unique, but this comes at a cost from having a lot less plants and a lot less zombies. Like Battle Cats, I think might have 1,000 cats by now, but Plants vs. Zombies 2, I don't think it even breaks like 150. I'm not sure though, I have to check, just so I know that's a lot less. Now Battle Cats certainly has more cats than Plants vs. Zombies has plants. However, it does come at the cost with less uniqueness, as every unit can access the abilities, none of them are individual. For example, there are a lot more cats that can knock back enemies in Battle Cats than there are plants that can knock back zombies in Plants vs. Zombies 2. However, traits does mix it up again. Thanks to this genius concept, it makes a lot of interactions between Battle Cats look a lot more interesting. Should I bring an anti-red even though there are other traits on the stage? I'll hit the other traits even though I might not even do damage to them, but it is still worth it to take down the red. Interactions like this is what helps keep Battle Cats interesting. And to be honest, I've never really seen a tower defense go into both traits and abilities as far as Battle Cats. Very good job, PONOS. At the same time though, Plants vs. Zombies 2 abilities are very unique. The fact that almost every plant in the game is unique makes it very appealing, and this is helped by the fact that each world in Plants vs. Zombies includes cool new themed zombies and some riveting plants. It's cool that every new plant brings something new to the table. Maybe not something completely new, but relatively new. I'll be honest, before writing the script, I was gonna put Battle Cats ahead, but then I remembered something that changed it completely. Plant food. Each plant in PvZ 2 has a plant food ability, which is kind of like an ultimate ability. I think this is enough to push Plants vs. Zombies 2 above Battle Cats. The fact that every plant has this unique ultimate ability that completely changes the way you think of them. Like, what if this plant is really useless, but it has a broken ultimate ability that we just have to use? For example, Infinite creates a wall and it blocks fisherman shots, like something like that, you know? So yeah, I think this definitely does put Plants vs. Zombies 2 ahead of Battle Cats. Maybe Battle Cats will get ultimates one day, who knows? So while I really like how Battle Cats handles unit variety with traits and abilities, I think this point goes to Plants vs. Zombies 2. Music, similar to theme, is very important, but not really to the gameplay, just more contributing to the overall feeling of the game. More serious games might use more serious music, like if you're playing, I don't know, Call of Duty, it might not go happy, lighthearted, 5-minute crash music. And lighter games might use this more lighthearted music, same thing both ways. Sound effects are also huge, and it also contributes to the general feeling of a game. If you don't get, like, what I mean, just go watch a horror movie, okay? If they don't have sound effects, it ain't that scary. Now let's start with music first. Battle Cats is a lot more orchestral, you know what I mean, orchestra, with more catchy beats that incorporate many different instruments and catchy hooks. It feels, I don't know, like honest but grand at the same time, while feeling, you know, a little epic and making you feel kind of hyped up. Plants vs. Zombies, despite its higher production costs, is a lot less out there. Like, there's some themes like the Lost City theme, I really like that theme, and the hook in Big Wave Beach, but overall I'd say like after the first hook it gets more and more gradual and kind of quieter. It's a little more subtle, making good use of synths, drums, and wacky instruments. Depending on the world you're playing, the music changes to fit the theme, contributing to the overall feeling. I will always stand that I think the original Plants vs. Zombies music is better than Plants vs. Zombies 2, which is kind of sad, but it's okay. It's not like Plants vs. Zombies 2 music is bad. Also, side note, this is why I've been using Plants vs. Zombies, the original music soundtrack, instead of Plants vs. Zombies 2. Except for this section, most of the music you've been hearing is from Plants vs. Zombies, not Plants vs. Zombies 2. And Battle Cats 2, but you know what I mean. If you recognize the Plants vs. Zombies music, it's from Plants vs. Zombies, not Plants vs. Zombies 2. On the other hand, I really like Battle Cats music. Even though that it isn't so like themed as much, I would say, like from world to world, I feel like Battle Cats is less reliant on the theme. Like, yeah, Into the Future music does sound more futuristic, but I feel like it's not as heavily as like in the Unmixtape Tour. You have all these 80s soundtracks, you know, all these 60s soundtracks in Big Wave Beach that sound like they're from California. The Wild West music that is playing right now sounds very Wild West. I think Battle Cats is less reliant on theme, and it just overall just has better music. Now, if you were to take the music between Plants vs. Zombies 2 and Plants vs. Zombies and combined it, then yeah, it'd be more of like a, but we're not doing that. Overall, Battle Cats is better music than Plants vs. Zombies 2. Now, as for sound effects, this time Battle Cats takes its turn to be more minimalistic. Battle Cats sounds are a little underwhelming, to be honest. I think there's like a sound effect for like damaging an enemy and like a cat cannon and like critical hit and lethal strike. Not much to stay here, very minimalistic on the sound effects. I think all the budget went in the animation department. Plants vs. Zombies 2, on the other hand, is very, very heavy on the sound effects. Any stage interaction, stage hazard, interaction between Plants vs. Zombies, etc., has some sort of sound effects that makes this game a lot more engaging while just contributing to the overall feeling of the game. Now this one is close. I prefer Battle Cats music a lot more than Plants vs. Zombies 2. I don't really like minimalism in music, especially game music, and you can sometimes really hear the quiet background when you're playing the game. On the other hand, Plants vs. Zombies sound effects are really, really good. I think Battle Cats is more minimalistic with their sound effects than PvZ 2 is with their music, if that makes more sense. I think, in the end, Plants vs. Zombies 2 takes the win here. I just really like the combination of their somewhat minimal music with the wide variety of sound effects. I think the sound effects carry a lot, and it plays into the theme of this game, especially within different worlds. Like if you see futuristic like plants fighting and making like laser sound effects with a far future theme in the background, it's just really good. So yeah, another point for Plants vs. Zombies 2. Replayability. Replayability is very important to a mobile game. After all, for a game to be sustainable over a long period of time, you have to give the player incentives to keep coming back. I mean, look at Fortnite. PvZ replayability is interesting. First off, there's basically no incentive to come back and play the main levels in the story after you beat them. Like, literally no incentive. And that's a problem, because besides the world, I personally found no reason to turn back into this game. It's not like I need to grind to unlock new plants, because I've already beaten the game. Now, there is an online mode, which I've tried, and it's kind of boring. Like, I'd rather just play Brawl Stars if I'm online, if to be honest. The other levels, like endless levels, aren't too interesting, and this might be more personal, but I've never really liked endless modes, and that's, well, because they don't end. Like, I know that's the point, but you know what I mean? I don't really want to clear something if there's, like, it doesn't end, you know? Exception is Subway Surfers, I love that game. So, yeah, in my opinion, Plants vs. Zombies 2 lacks a lot of replayability. Battle Cats also kind of suffers from this. Most of the levels have no reason to return to except for treasures, which I hate. If you want to know why, check out this video. However, it is saved by zombie and aqua outbreaks. Zombie and aqua outbreaks are like these little things that pop up when you complete a world. After being into the future chapter 1, you'll get zombie outbreaks, and it's just a really good reason to come back because it offers a new challenge and you can change up your strategy a little bit. Now, this would already be enough to beat out Plants vs. Zombies 2, but Battle Cats dunks on EA's game with Legend Stages. Legend Stages are basically like bonus stages that are available once you finish enough of the game. These range from collab events, unit unlock stages, and another story mode, and there's just so much more to do. It's almost like you never run out of content because they keep adding content in these cool Legend Stages. There are so many Legend Stages that I haven't even completed all of them, or even come close, and I have hundreds of hours on this game, and I'd say I'm pretty good, and I still come back time to time. So yeah, if it wasn't obvious, Battle Cats takes a clear win here. Easy point. Free-to-play friendliness. Most games, especially mobile ones, struggle in keeping their game free-to-play friendly. You have the choice to make a good game or make a lot of money, and there never seems to be some middle ground. PvZ as well, not very free-to-play friendly. Now, while some of the best plants in the game are free, a lot of broken plants are hidden behind a paywall, which I do not like. You want a broken plant that one-shots any zombie? That will be $6.99 please, or some outrageous thing for just a single plant in the game. Like, why am I paying that much when I've already beaten the game? And don't even get me started on power-ups. Like, if you want to beat the game on tutorial mode, just buy a bunch of power-ups. Power-ups are like infinite, like power-ups you can always just beat. You just need coins. You just buy more coins, and then you can always just beat a level by just spamming power-ups. So no matter how hard stages, you can always beat it with power-ups. It's very, very sad that that exists. There's no limit to this. However, don't do this. It's a waste of money, and yeah, like, it's not worth it to ruin your own experience in the game just to waste more money and make the game easier. And the game's already pretty easy enough. I wouldn't say it's too challenging. Like, I guess it is free to play plenty, as the game is easy enough to beat without power-ups, but a lot of cool plants are hidden behind a paywall, which I am not a fan of. Battle Cats, on the other hand, is completely free to play. Like, literally, as someone who's not spent a cent on this game, there's nothing a person that doesn't pay can't access. Literally nothing is hidden behind a paywall. Like, yeah, you can pay money for cat food, but cat food is just a resource, and you can just grind that from, you know, watching videos or completing stages. It's not that hard. The gacha aspect of this game makes it even more free to play friendly, as in, even if you don't pay money, you are not guaranteed good units. Like, if you pay money, you're not guaranteed a good unit. There is nothing a paid player can get that a free player cannot get, and I love this about it. I've personally spent 0 cents on this game, and I've unlocked so many cool units. It's just amazing. Battle Cats is probably the most free to play game I've played in my life, and I'm not joking. I really, really like what the developers have done with this game for making a game anybody can play and enjoy as well. This is something I plan to make a video on, so I won't yap on this any further. So yeah, Battle Cats gets the point here, and very, very well deserved. Probably the most well deserved point on the list. Creativity. We're ending this list off with a banger. Creativity is something that I've always appreciated in gaming, because no matter how good a game is, if it was done before better, does it matter? Like, if you create a game and it's just a copy and the game before it is better, does it even matter that it's good? Like, if the other game's better, what's the point of playing this game? Now, both Plants vs. Zombies and Battle Cats are known for pushing boundaries and innovating. Plants vs. Zombies 2 is more known for developing the multi-lane tower defense, while Battle Cats is the single-lane one. Plants vs. Zombies 2 showcases creativity and the importance of strategic planning and theme. It really pushes the boundaries and, like, the worlds in Plants vs. Zombies. You can mix different plant types to counter various zombies, for example, pairing defensive attacks with offensive ones, or using plants to slow down enemies with long-range attackers, or, you know, like using pea shooter with torchwood to make it stronger. Like, strategies like this where there's synergy between plants. Battle Cats doesn't really have this directly. Like, of course, Cyberstack works well with, like, other crowd controllers, but it's not it's more indirect, you know? PvZ2 creatively incorporates more of a traditional tower defense game, adding many gimmicks to keep you engaged. I love the creativity development had in creating interesting enemies, like Piano Zombie, a zombie that makes zombies switch flames, which changes the way you think about your strategy beforehand. Shield Zombie, who creates a force field only lasers can go through. I talked about this before. I really like that zombie. And the entire lineup in Zombies and Neon Mixtape Tour is just amazing. The creativity needed to create all sorts of interaction with different plants, zombies, and stage gimmicks like music is just so cool. I would definitely say that PvZ2 has the edge in having better and more creative enemies than Battle Cats. So yeah, Battle Cats enemies are pretty creative, but Plants vs. Zombies 2 takes it a whole nother level, and things that I hadn't imagined before in a tower defense game. It really sometimes makes it feel that you are actually playing in that world. You're really playing in the far future, or you're really playing in ancient Egypt, like stuff like that. Let's get into plants now. There's so many combinations of plants that you can use to create an effective defense, and some of them are just so cool and creative to use. Again, The worlds come into play, and having plants that are themed for their specific world is just amazing in my opinion. Plants vs. Zombies, to put it simply, showcases the creativity in creating a theme. It really feels like the developers put in a lot of effort in creating a variety of themes to keep the player engaged and interested, and you can't just help being pulled into the feeling of this game. Battle Cats, I feel, shows its creativity in its unique traits and abilities, as well as its aesthetic animations. Traits and abilities in Battle Cats are an extremely good way of keeping interactions in the game fun and interesting, while still being able to create completely new units. I've talked about this in my other video. Battle Cats has pushed the way I've seen tower defense games, and the sheer versatility in its comments and traits and abilities is simply amazing. Like, if you really want to know a full in-depth view of Battle Cats, check out this video after. I really like this video. I think it's the finest I've made so far, so yeah. Shameless self-promotion anyway. At the same time, Battle Cats has some really cool animation, and while most mobile games aren't known for their stellar graphics, Battle Cats has shown how much of an impact good animations give a game. Like, look at Battle Cats and you just see the stellar performance the animation did in creating this game. Like, it's just amazing. Some of the animations are genuinely look like they're from an anime. I think in the end though, Battle Cats takes the lead here. Now this one might be a little controversial, but let me explain why, and this might surprise you a little bit and it'll probably convince you as well. Plants vs. Zombies 2 is a sequel to Plants vs. Zombies 1. And this makes its creativity a lot more diminished, as it's already going off of an already established game. After all, if you're doing something that has already been done before, it kinda like makes it a little worse. Battle Cats is a completely new concept. Now you can make the argument that Plants vs. Zombies 2 is a series, and I should compare it as a series, not as an individual game. But first of all, that seems unfair. And if I was to compare Plants vs. Zombies 1 to Battle Cats completely blows out of the water. It's not even close, so I'm not even gonna try that. So yeah, I really do like Plants vs. Zombies creativity, especially in the importance of creating a theme. I really love Plants vs. Zombies theme. It has the best theme out of any tower defense I've played, and actually one of the best themes in any games I've played. But I think Battle Cats, with its unique traits and abilities, combination and interactions, and with its unique animations and cool, like, just style in general, I think just beats it out. So the final point goes to Battle Cats. In conclusion, if we look at the list, we can see that Battle Cats clearly takes the win here, and I completely agree with that. I think that overall Battle Cats is the superior game, and this is not just because I've played it. Now, think of it this way. If it wasn't the superior game, I'd spend more time on Plants vs. Zombies 2. But I think Plants vs. Zombies 2 really lacks in the replayability department. I feel like once you beat the game, there's not really any reason to come back. I feel like that's the biggest flaw of Plants vs. Zombies 2. And even besides that, Battle Cats has some amazing things, like I said before, their creativity and their animations, the replayability, the fact that you don't have to spend a single cent, the creativity in just creating this game. It's just a fantastic game in general. I just really like how Battle Cats is designed, and even though Plants vs. Zombies is definitely not a bad game, definitely not, I definitely recommend playing it if you're gonna play another game besides Battle Cats, but I just feel like Battle Cats takes the edge here, and I feel like it is the better game. I do really like how Plants vs. Zombies focuses on theme, as I said before. So yeah, just know that I know Plants vs. Zombies 2 is not a bad game. It is definitely a very good game, but I think Battle Cats is the better game in the end. However, keep in mind that this is all my opinion. Nothing is set in stone. If you want to download Plants vs. Zombies 2 and it looks more appealing for you, go right ahead. I'm not stopping you. And of course, if you have the time, I definitely recommend playing both games. I think a Battle Cats player will enjoy Plants vs. Zombies and the other way around. If you're a Plants vs. Zombies player, consider picking up Battle Cats. It's a very good game. And if you play Battle Cats, consider picking up Plants vs. Zombies 2. Mix and match. Do your own thing. I don't care. So in the end, I present to you the king of tower defense, Battle Cats. Thanks for watching, everyone. This video was pretty difficult to make. When I'm reading the script right now, I am very tired, and I'm not trying to guilt trip or anything, but this did take a lot of work to make, so if you could subscribe, hit that thumbs up, that'd be very appreciated. And be sure to leave your opinion in the comment section below. If you disagree with me, tell me in the comments. Don't just dislike the video and leave, because that's not helping anybody. And I'm not gonna try to force you to agree with me, as I said before. You know, that's it. Anyways, I should be talking about my channel now. So I am trying to get mine more diverse. I think my Valorant video flopped. So maybe not Valorant for now. I'm just trying to expand my horizon of games. I'm going to say this again. Any other video games besides Battle Cats you want me to cover, please leave them in the comment section below. I think it's time for me to expand my channel. Now, if you watched this far in the video, thank you. That really does help with the watch time percentage, meaning it gets recommended for more people like you who might enjoy my videos. But anyways, that's all I really want to say. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.